are those things that help us understand and link personally to the storyteller. So I'm gonna provide some lessons to you tonight with two stories. So the first one is entitled Enlightenment, the Dying Age. I had awoken with a sense of unease. It was dark, very dark, and still. I lay cocooned in a sleeping bag on a thin thermarest in a backpacking tent, listening intently to what sounded like the soft padding of footsteps outside. Sleeping in a tent so near to the ground with just a couple layers of ripstop nylon between you and the outside world exposes and intensifies your vulnerabilities. My wife and myself and our dog, a yellow lab, were in a campground in Jasper National Park. Entering the park, you were warned with huge signage about wildlife, especially bears, how dangerous they are, their unpredictability, and why you must keep your distance. At the entrance to the campground, and liberally sprinkled throughout the campground, were signs inviting one to understand you were in bear country. At check-in, we were again verbally warned of bear presence and of proper food storage. To emphasize the point, the warning was accompanied with written materials. The picnic table had a plastic notice warning of proper food storage and the dire consequences of not adhering to the advice. Consciously and rationally, I grasped all this and the minuscule risk we were exposing ourselves to. My subconscious had apparently taken another track. In our modern lives, we are bombarded by advertisements created often by the most talented of marketing professionals. We are so inundated, we don't pay attention, mostly, until inexorably we are standing in a store buying friendship shampoo for which there is no logical reason for selecting that brand. Score one for the marketers. So, to say my subconscious was obsessed with bears is mild understatement. It alerted my conscious, otherwise rational mind to the sounds outside the tent. I listened with intent, straining to discern what was outside. I decided it wasn't human footsteps, not the mincing, prancing steps of a deer, or the heavier hoof fall of an elk. Only a paw, a clawed paw, the paws of a heavy animal. A black bear, or worse, a grizzly, could make the soft, muffled sound moving over the spruce needles blanketing the ground outside the tent. I lifted my head to listen better. The sound stopped, as if the animal was alert to my wakefulness. When I let my head fall, the sound continued. And it seemed as I turned my head, the padding would move around to the exterior of the tent, sometimes fading momentarily, then becoming louder. As I lifted my head, the sound would stop, reigniting the fear the animal was aware of me. I repeated the test of lifting and allowing my head to fall back on the pillow multiple times, all with the same results. I'm sure this went on for minutes. I began to prepare for the worst. What if an attack occurred? The truck was locked with our bear spray unavailable. My only weapon was my Leatherman multi-tool knife, a poor choice for warding off a bear attack. Could I beat the animal off with a hiking boot? Would shouts and screams bring assistance from other campers? How was I to defend my wife, which occurred to me later? I was then aware of our dog, an animal with a highly tuned sense of hearing and smell, was sleeping soundly, blissfully, with no heightened alertness to the threat apparently just inches from the wall of the tent. This puzzled me. Replica tests indicated that the sound of clawed paws was not coming from outside the tent, nor was it clawed paws. It was the sound of my wool toque, worn to keep me warm on a frosty night, rubbing with every breath against the fabric of the sleeping bag. I had been had. by my subconscious, reacting irrationally to the messaging of Parks Canada. What a return we get on an investment of fear, irrational behavior, and a failure to use observations to moderate our reactions. I fell back to a deep sleep after scolding my subconscious with the thought something imagined produces more fear than the real thing. It was also a reminder to my conscious never to judge reality with a limited set of experiences and information. This brings me to the Enlightenment, based on my enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, was an 18th century intellectual movement in Europe. It came to dominate the world with, notably, an emphasis on science, reason rather than faith based on experimentation and objective observations. Reliance on fears, irrational explanations, and faith gave way to deductive reasoning, multiple observations, and objective, evidence-based analysis divorced from preconceived notions and outcomes. This only came to me in the tent waiting for the non-existent grizzly to attack after following several lines of evidence and coming to another rational conclusion. Over 3 centuries of scientific discovery, of systematic methodology, and of rational thought based on evidence seem at risk, especially with our current social media fascination with selective interpretation, unfounded rumors, hyperbolic grandstanding, conspiracy theories, outright distortions, and overall uncivil behavior. And I'm just not talking about the American election. There is a corrosive effect of social media on science to create an alternate reality where facts are, if not irrelevant, at least optional. It is the place of substitution of unfounded opinion for evidence. There is faith in that for which there is no factual support, disbelief and denial about occurrences and events for which there are. The numbing thing about the tribalism inherent in social media is your group routinely provides the conditions that spare you the need to think, and so you get out of the habit. Brooks Atkinson, an American theater critic and commentator, said, "People everywhere enjoy believing things that are not true. It spares them the ordeal of thinking for themselves and taking responsibility for what they know." There's nothing wrong with ignorance as long as it's accompanied by curiosity to seek information and knowledge. Then a little ignorance can go a long way. But as Elbert Hubbard, an American writer, observed, that the recipe for perpetual ignorance is be satisfied with your opinions and content with your knowledge. So curiosity didn't kill the cat, stupidity did. The chaos of ignorance gives us a sense of freshness, while the order of knowledge provides a frustrating curse of restricted vision. We are entering a dangerous new era, according to Charlie Brooker, an English satirist, the unenlightenment, in which centuries of rational thought and reason are being overturned by superstition, conspiracy theory, tribalism, and argumentum ad hominem. This is aided and abetted by social media. Wallace Stegner wisely pointed out that veritable knowledge makes its way slowly and only under cultivation, but fable has burrs and feet and claws and wings and an indestructible sheath like a weed seed, and can be carried almost anywhere and take rest without the benefit of soil or water. Whether it is the thump in the night, climate change, or other issues, the default, despite the age of enlightenment, seems to be to opinion, emotion, fear, and or disbelief instead of a rational, measured thought process based on evidence. We are, despite all our progress, not far off of the old Scottish prayer that still comforts us. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and all things that go bump in the night, good Lord, deliver us. Although the hysteria Suspension of belief and tribal thought, even when your tribe is wrong, seems to be the gifts that keep on giving despite evidence to the contrary. There are rays of hope. Some 400 years after Galileo was arrested for heresy after espousing a sun-centered solar system, Pope John Paul II apologized, acknowledging Galileo was right. Pope Francis humbly declared that scientific observations about evolution, climate change, and the Big Bang are correct, and God is not a magician with a magic wand. It's time to make a choice between willful or blind ignorance and measured reason based on sound observation. A soundbite culture can't discuss science very well, if at all. Scientific illiteracy leaves many unprepared and unable to discuss or understand the damage exerted on the atmosphere, habitat for wildlife, or our own individual health. We can't lower the bar on enlightenment. Tweet that.